We're so excited to have Kristine on today. Kristine, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Kevin, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to getting right into it. So, Kristine, you are an experienced and I would say you're a successful investor. It's great to see successful women investors. And I feel like we don't see enough of that. Why do you think more women don't invest in real estate?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I guess there's two sides to that. We have investors passively investing in real estate. And I would say, I wouldn't say half, but I would say it's a pretty fair amount that we get of investors, of either couples or women investing passively in real estate. So I would say that's pretty fairly balanced for the most part, maybe 60-40, something
Sure.
like that.
Okay. Yeah.
With 60% men, 40% women passively investing. And as far as active investors, general partners, such as operators, such as myself, you are right. There is not a whole lot of women doing this. I don't see a lot of women doing it as actively. I don't, maybe they're just not as vocal about it or on platforms and we just don't know about it and it's really happening. And or at the same time, it kind of ties into, I think, sales too.
Sure.
It's more of it is a lot more men driven kind of career and field than it is women driven. It's just similar to sales. It's the
Right.
same kind of thing, I think. And there are a couple of different sides too of being an operator. And it can be, I could say anybody can do it because anybody can do it. But it also takes a lot of, well, first of all, it takes a lot of spousal support for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah. Either
No
way.
matter
Yeah.
what side.
Right, yeah. I can attest to
It
that.
takes a lot of spousal support because it's especially if you have a daytime job and you're doing this too. This is your full-time job, still the same thing.
Yeah.
In addition to that, it's like I said, anyone can do it, but you got to be really determined, really driven, and have a super strong why. If you have that, and then yeah. Anyone
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you said about the why. I think me and Kevin won't be able to help ourselves but to go there and talk about that for a minute. But before we do, that's a really good point you made about passive investors. I actually hadn't thought about that so much, and you don't see passive investors that much. The active ones are who you tend to see because they're out there, that they have to attract people to them to continue the machine and all of that. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I would love to see more women invest. I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we might be able to encourage more women to invest, but if you do, I'd love to hear some of that. Is it
No,
just
I think
education?
absolutely. I hope I see it. I know it's out there, and again, it can be done. I guess maybe it could be a confidence thing or finding the right partner. I mean, that could all be reasons why we don't see, as much, like, where do I get started, or but it's certainly no reason not. I mean, I welcome more. There are a lot of women investor Facebook groups that I see, but the majority of them I also see are on the smaller scale of investing, smaller, like under 20 units and under.
Right.
And I think that's more maybe in someone's comfort zone. I don't know. I guess I would say it's not as typical or common, maybe so much for women to expand outside of their comfort zone, because it's really a huge leap and step to go from 0 or 20 to 75 and 100.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Again, yeah, but partnerships are a key role too. So I just want women to feel like they don't have to do it alone either.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I think that what you'll notice across the board, the most successful investors or real estate investors specifically all have a team. And I think that is a parallel that they all share. That being said, what advice do you have for people when it comes to finding a team? Right? I think that you mentioned that is an important factor. So how would you advise, whether it's a passive investor, an active investor, finding a team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Finding a team, the way I found my business partner, Daniel, is we met at a meetup, and it was a single family meetup. It wasn't even multifamily, because at the time there weren't a whole lot of multifamily meetups. So we just happened to go to, it was a holiday gathering, it was dinner, and we happened to sit next to each other, and we were the only two people in the room that did multifamily investing. So we started talking to each other and hit it off from there. So that's how we became partners. And we've also have worked with a lot of partners as general partners on our team too. And a majority of the ones that we are so thankfully able to partner with these people. And there's a lot of networking and going to events and meeting people at events. I mean, that's how we met, was at.
Yeah, that's right.
So just yeah, sharing common ground with people at events. And, you know, most people are looking for partners at events like that. Events meaning, I mean, real estate investing or apartment investing events, but it could be other events as well.
Absolutely. So Kristine, let's step back a little bit, and I'd love to ask you about how you discovered investing in the first place, or real estate investing. How did you discover that?
I was a stay-at-home mom for over 7 years. And
awesome.
I knew I needed to go back to work. I also knew I wanted to be my own boss. And I had no idea what I was going to do. You know, I thought of multi-level marketing. It's just some other thoughts crossed my mind. And I came across a book by Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki, Why We Want You to Be Rich. And I read that. And that was, you know, like, that is what I want to do. I want to be in real estate. And then I got every book out in the library that I could. And I read them all. And I'm like, yeah, but it was all residential real estate. Multifamily real estate, it didn't even cross my mind then.
Gotcha. Right.
I did years of residential real estate, buy, hold, fix, flip, tear down, rebuilds,
nice.
You know, lease option, you name it. I did all that for about 10 years, more than 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years. And then I transitioned. My last property that I did that was residential was significant, and it was big. And I'm like, if I'm going this big, why am I not doing multifamily?
Fantastic mindset.
I don't know anything about multifamily. So then I learned, got books and read and got a mentor.
That's great. Awesome. All the key things that will lead to success. I like the books, the mentors, the networking.
Absolutely.
If somebody's between, let's say they're starting out and they're between, I want to buy, you know, do a single family route, or they want to go the big multifamily route, what would you say if they said, I don't know what to decide? How would you guide them through, given your experience and success in both asset classes?
I would totally suggest that you don't need to do residential to get started. To get started, start educating yourself on multifamily. And the reason I say no to starting a residential career is it's a lot more speculative than multifamily investing is, and you're one door. I mean, I still have one property left, just one. It was my very first single family. It's a townhouse. It's my very first single family property I ever purchased in 2008, and I still have it. And I needed a new roof this year, and I just had a maintenance call on the furnace. And it's only 2 years old. So the roof, the furnace call in this year alone, I mean, there goes my entire profits for the year, like, gone.
Wow.
So I would say there's no need to educate or start on residential. There's a totally different ballgame than multifamily. It's evaluated differently. I mean, it has the benefits of, scales of economy. I mean, you're doing many doors. You have it factored in if you need a new roof. That's already in the budget. You have vacancy already factored in. With one door, if you have somebody vacant there for 1 or 2 months, there can go all your profits again for 12 months. With multifamily, that's factored into the numbers. So I would say start with multifamily, not residential. That was I wish I earlier, straight to multifamily and just get started in it.
Yeah, I hear so many people say that. I wish I had gotten started earlier, or I wish I had gotten started in big multifamily earlier. How did you choose the big multifamily? Because in my opinion, that's a pretty big difference. So people could be comfortable even buying a commercial multifamily, which is 5 units and above. So let's say you bought a 10 unit. That's big for some people. How did you decide, hey, I'm going to go after 80, 100, more than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, when I first started educating myself and taking courses, and just before I got a mentor, I in my mind was like, okay, well, what can I do by myself? And I was looking at 18, 20 units. I submitted an LOI on an 18-unit property. And in a way, I was like, ooh, I really don't want this because I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I can because I was getting a mentor. I'm like, I guess, we can walk through it together. But then I'm like, well, how the heck am I going to syndicate, an 18-unit building? Like the numbers just don't work to syndicate something like that. And I didn't have the money to put it all in a property, nor even if I did, should I put everything, all the cash I have into this property. So it got me thinking, and I didn't know at the time about partnership. I didn't know really anything other than finding the property myself and buying it myself. I'm like, what else is there? I met Daniel, and he was, shortly after I met him, a couple months after we met, he had a property under contract in Texas, and it was 90 units. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And that's way too big for me. And he said, well, it's just as much work to do a 90 unit as it is to do an 18, 20 unit. And I'm like, well, how can I get involved? He's like, well, I'm going on due diligence. And I think he gave me a week notice. He's like, I'm going to do Texas next week. Come on the due diligence trip with me. You can learn about it. Help underwrite it, and you can raise capital and become part of the GP team. So I did. That
Nice.
started. I actually raised $760,000.
Wow.
That's great.
My board. I don't even. Yeah, 760. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic for your first deal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I guess I could say the benefit of that is when I knew that I was starting in I did do all my residential properties with private money. So you would think I'd have experience and pull those investors, but none of them went to multifamily.
Wow.
But when I started doing the okay, well, how am I going to get an 18, 20 unit all by myself? I started to get back in the game of networking, and I did a lot of networking at RIAs and residential, which is how I met Daniel, at meetups. So I started, 8 months in advance of meeting Daniel, to going to meetups, to talking to people, to getting involved in platforms and commenting. And so that's how it got started. It didn't start that day. It started 8-10 months before I met Daniel in networking and getting people and telling people what I was doing. So that when this happened, I actually did have a deal, because I was presenting a pretend deal to investors. So it built up to that. So that's how I was able to do that.
Wow.
Just to break down, when you were doing residential and that was from private money, would those investors provide the cash for the properties, or was it like for the down payment? How did that work itself out? When it was the residential properties, when you said you were using private money, I'm just curious.
When I did private money for the residential properties, it was primarily all 100% private money. No down payment. It was cash.
Okay. Just curious.
Gotcha.
I did use hard money once, and I did use a construction loan once. And my very first property was all me. It was I got a loan and did 20% on my HELOC years, in 2008. But all the other ones were all 100% private money.
Nice.
Mhm.
So, Kristine, you mentioned that you had a mentor, and we know how important that is. A lot of people try to decide. I mean, they're people who are just learning this a lot of times. They don't have that abundance mindset yet, and they're not quite thinking like a what will help me grow? How can I invest? And what will the return on that be for a mentor? They're thinking that could be expensive. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you found your mentor and how you
Mhm.
see that? Like, what's the importance of a mentor to you?
Okay, yeah, sure. And I mean, I had one all along. I did have mentors in residential when I started that as well with
Oh,
residential
great.
states. I mean, I knew mentors were important. So I've always been in a mentor mindset. So I didn't really have to be convinced like that I needed a mentor. I knew the value that one can bring. And I've had some bad mentors and I've had some good ones. But I knew that this was too big in my mind to go alone. So I wanted someone. I actually went through the Michael Blanc program. And when I was going into multifamily, I called him and because I knew he was doing it. And we're from the same area. So I called him and he was just starting his mentorship program at the time. So that's when I got my one-on-one coaching. And yeah, I didn't have the money. I was coming off of that massive last flip I did, which was a tear down rebuild. And it was a huge loss to me. So I didn't have the money for a mentor. And but I did have a credit card that had that had money I could put on it. So yeah. So I was all in. I mean, I was all in. 'Cause not only did I have debt going into it, but I knew that I had to pay off that credit card too. So there was no plan B for me.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
That plan B is, I think Tony Robbins has something where he says, if you get rid of plan B and you only have plan A, you're going to allocate everything you have to achieving that plan A. So,
Very true.
speaking of the capital raising, 760,000 is a lot of money, especially for your first deal. I'm sure that there are some habits, some strategies that you implemented moving forward. So could you share kind of what you think makes a successful capital raiser?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also we've had a lot of help. Also we've had great, incredible co-sponsors on our deals. So we've established really good connections, and a lot of it is through networking and following up. The key is following up with people. Like when Adam, we had how long ago did we meet? I think this time last year was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Maybe
think it
this time
was
last year,
I think it
something
was
like that.
pretty close to that, a little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it's in staying in touch with everyone you meet, like going to those events like we went to and getting business cards and then doing something with that, like taking action and staying in touch, putting people not only in your database, but individually keep in touch with them to not like mass keep in touch with them, but individually
Right.
keep in touch with people.
Make them feel that relationship.
Build a real it's all about relationships.
It is. And so many people don't do that. So that's a huge tip for our listeners. Follow up. A lot of people don't. I can't tell you how many conferences I will go to and there's no follow up. I do though. But there's
Right.
always those people where they don't have a card. So I give them mine and then I never hear from them. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So we are at the time of this recording, we're in a really uncertain time. And we're talking a little about capital raising. So a lot of people may be thinking, boy, is it a lot harder during an uncertain time when you're not sure what's going on, when there's some fear out there? How do you kind of look at that? How do you think about raising capital during a time of great uncertainty.
Mhm. It is a little more challenging. People do have a little bit of fear of the uncertainty with the market and what's going to happen. When we buy and capital raising is like always be capital raising, no matter.
Mm-hmm.
So when the time does come that you have an acquisition, you're ready to go. And, we had a terrible market in 2008 that was real estate driven. This particular market isn't necessarily fallen because of real estate. It's a different world, a little stronger in that regards. But preparing, so real estate always stays true the test of time.
Yes.
Of all the markets that we've been through, real estate shines above all other investing vehicles.
Yeah.
And we plan, we tell our investors, when we underwrite properties, we do it for the long term. Yeah, we may sell in 2 or 3 years, but we're underwriting for 5 to 7 because we don't know. No one has a crystal ball. No one's going to know where the market's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we like to anticipate holding on to the property to weather any storms until something were to rebound. So this isn't, a quick turnaround kind of event.
Right.
And we also, so that's one of the things that we do, in getting investors, we describe how we acquire properties, what we look at in our investment, and how we safeguard, in any economy that we're in. We have buffers in reserve. We're not thin. We make sure we have enough to weather any, but we stress test our property. What's the lowest vacancy rent we can go to? If the economy were to, go to hell in a handbasket, how we have to be, how bad do we have to be to pay our debt service or get our investors? So when we do raise capital, we just make sure that our potential investors or our investors know all the safeguards we put into underwriting our properties to make it a sound investment for the investor.
I like that. So there's a lot of it being conservative. You talk about trying to anticipate,
Yes.
Which no one has a crystal ball. And you mentioned 1, 2, 3 4 years out. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the next month, right? We just kind of read the signs, read the clues in the news, and try and anticipate as best we can. That being said, during these times, how do you think about your investing strategy when things are going crazy? Do you change it? Do you when you're anticipating, do you think about it differently? Where do you stand with that?
Yes, we can think about it differently. We also make sure that our properties have plans and backup plans. For instance, if we have a big capital expense repair that is it's not mandatory that we do, but optional that we do, we may hold off on that and save the money and not spend it on the capital improvement at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sticking along the same theme here of change and uncertainty, what can people do to thrive during a time like this? I've noticed successful people look at things a bit differently, and they try to see the positive and what you can do to not just survive this thing. What can you do to thrive during a time like this? Do you have any thoughts around that?
I do. We're still getting deals, so that's a good thing. We're still underwriting properties. But for our business right now, after this acquisition that we're doing, we are putting our acquisitions on pause just for, it's just no rhyme or reason of the timing of it with how we are now. It just happened to fall that way. So we're putting our acquisitions right now on pause to work on our business and spend time on getting all of our systems and processes and policies and procedures in place, making sure it's set up to run like a franchise and everything is in place. So when we're ready to go again and start acquiring, it's operated like a well-oiled machine and smoothly and like a business should run. so everything's in place. And we're also pausing to spend time on raising capital.
Yeah, that's smart. You know, a lot of people don't take the time to
And we're
work on
getting
their
our coffers
business.
built.
Oh, sorry. Our connection cut out for a sec, and I
Yeah,
accidentally talked over you.
exactly. And we're at a point. No, we're at a point now where we need to step back and look to hire an asset manager on and just get some people on board so that we can focus more on the business as so much as in the business. And
I like that. So you are pivoting and looking at ways, okay, with what's happening, what can we do to make ourselves better? And as Adam was saying, that's great testament to the success you've had in the past and success I'm sure you'll have in the future. Now, when you were taking that massive leap, and I'm sure you have this fear and anxiety when you're doing every deal because there's an uncertainty with each deal you do. How do you push through that fear? Can you walk us through what goes through your mind and how you kind of make sure you still take action in the presence of all that?
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question. So this year alone, and it's been my business partner and myself, and we did have an underwriter for a while on our team who had to do full-time Air Force pilot training, so he can no longer be with us. So we raised about 12 to 13 million this year alone, and
Nice.
had 4 acquisitions in 2019. So there was a lot of pushing out of my comfort zone and fear. And it's up to me. I'm like, if I don't do this, who else is going to do this? Like this is, first of all, I'm not going to let my partner down. Second of all, we're in this together. And if I don't do my job or what I'm supposed to do, I'm not going to get where I want to go. I'm not going to succeed. I mean, it's up to me. So every day, I mean, a lot of times I would, when I'm getting ready, I watch YouTube Motiversity. I watch a lot of kind of uplifting clips on YouTube, like that channel. I listen to things that get me going. I'd like to meditate every morning, kind of clear my mind. I start every day with my top 3 things that must get done. And I work to get them done because I know that it's 100% my responsibility.
Nice. That's
really
that's
pushes
awesome.
me through my fear. Mm-hmm.
You said a lot of things that we hear from successful people. I love it, especially about having the routine, also about like the types of positive materials you input. That's so important. What goes in, affects you. So Kristine, we like to ask all of our guests a fun tech question because we are the tech guys who invest. So,
and I am not a tech person.
You're not? Oh, this is going to be really good then.
Yeah.
What was your favorite piece of technology in college or in your college age years?
That is a fun question for me because I graduated high school in 1989, and my graduation gift from my parents was an electric typewriter.
Nice.
So yeah. So
Kevin, you know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, electric typewriter. So you could type on it, and then it would like type later. Like it would store in this one little itty bitty 1/2 inch by 3 inch screen, and you can type, and then it would print. But
I totally had one of those.
Piece of technology.
That's awesome.
College, everything was done. We did have a computer lab. Sometimes I would go to once or twice in the 4 years I was there. There was no technology. There really wasn't technology. That was the extent of it, which, by the way, I would love to go back, period, just for a day and not have technology and emails and texts and having to feel like need to respond quickly and work all the time. It would be nice to take a break and go back in time.
Yeah, it's changed everything
It
so
would also be
much.
very challenging right now to not have all of this.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
supports our business. It really enables us to do so many things that we
yeah.
do in this business nowadays. Well, Kristine, it has been a pleasure having you on. It's been absolutely fantastic. I think you've added a lot of value to our listeners. And Kevin and I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We'd like to ask you, where can people who want to get in touch with you find you?
Sure, I'll make it easy. They can find me at our website, which is Mission Bay CP, as in Capital Partners. So missionbaycp.com. And I'm on there, and my contact information's on our website.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes. So thanks so much, Kristine. It's been great having you on.
Oh, no, it was fun. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.